let us continue with our origins on Saint Simon the Zealot. Now Matthew and Mark refer to Simon as a Canaanian, that is an inhabitant of the city of Cana. Thus Simon, like Nathanael, comes from the city of Cana. Some Bible translations, such as the King James Version, refers to Simon as a Canaanite. But this would mean that Simon would have to be a Canaanite and not a Jew. And since the scriptures make it clear that all of the 12 disciples were Jews, this can't be the translation. Bible translations such as the Tyndale Bible and also the Luther Bible instead translate it as Simon from Cana, or Simon the Canaanian. Not a Canaanite, the pagan Gentiles that lived in the land of Cana before it was inhabited by Israel, but a Canaanian, a person from the city of Cana. The Gospel of Luke and the Acts of the Apostles also refer to Simon as a zealot. Now the Zealots were an anti-Roman Jewish sect. The 1st century Jewish historian Josephus Flavius regards them as the 4th sect of Judaism, the other 3 being Pharisees, Sadducees, and the Essenes. The Zealots were founded by Judas the Galilean, the rebel leader mentioned in Acts 5:37, who had risen up in the days of the census of Quirinius. Josephus states that the Zealots believed it was wrong to pay taxes to Caesar, and that God was their only king, and that violence was justified in order to overthrow the Roman government. The Zealots were a very violent anti-Roman revolutionary group. If the Zealots existed today, we would consider them a terrorist organization. Now Simon's involvement in this group was not insignificant or a passing fad. The fact that Luke makes a point of calling Simon the Zealot about 30 years after he had become a disciple demonstrates that it was a well-known fact that Simon had been a zealot, suggesting a deep commitment to the group. Simon's inclusion in the 12 is very interesting when you consider it as a counterbalance to Matthew the tax collector. See, Matthew worked for the Roman government, collecting taxes for Caesar, while Simon was a terrorist seeking to overthrow the Roman government and opposed paying taxes to Caesar. Matthew was a government employee, loyal to the Roman Empire, and Simon was a violent terrorist who sought to establish an independent Jewish kingdom. Now, even though Simon would have given up his violent terrorist ways when he became a disciple, he most likely retained his nationalistic politics, whereas Matthew was probably an imperialist and a globalist, which goes to show that Christians, while united on doctrine, can differ in politics, insofar as politics do not go against the law of God. You know, Simon the Zealot being a Jewish nationalist and Matthew being a Roman globalist. Now, one church tradition held that Simon was a merchant prior to joining the Zealots, and that he was born in Cana but later moved to Capernaum, much like many of the other disciples. Another church tradition teaches that Simon had been bitten by a snake and was healed by Jesus, who said to him, "You shall be my disciple." Like Simon Peter, since Simon the Zealot uses the Greek name Simon rather than the Hebrew name Simeon, we can assume that Simon the Zealot is a Hellenistic Jew. And that wraps up the origins of Saint Simon the Zealot.